You have to believe me.
Throughout history, human beings have sought belonging, purpose, and meaning. Yet, in some of the darkest corners of society, there are groups that exploit these very needs. We call them cults. But what defines a cult? Is it simply a religious deviation, a political opposition, or something far more sinister? This is Crimsify. Today we explore the phenomenon of cults and cult crimes through the lens of criminology theory, examining how they emerge, how they control, and why individuals become ensnared in their grip. In one of the papers written by Ron Chen, he stated that different disciplines define cults in very different ways. From the perspective of religion science, a cult may be regarded as a heresy, a deviation from traditional belief. Yet, it is important to note, heresies are not always malicious nor inherently destructive. Politically, cults are understood as groups whose belief stands in direct contradiction to the prevailing ideology of the state. From a sociological perspective, Western scholars see cults as manipulative organizations that seize control of their followers, mentally and physically, leading them to abandon mainstream values. This view aligns most closely with the legal concept of cult crimes. In one of Alex O'Connor's podcasts discussing cults with a cult deprogrammer Rick Alan Ross, he stated that one of the most defining characteristics of a cult is its highly organized structure. At the center lies the leader, or a small circle of individuals who establish and expand the group by anticipating and coercing followers to serve their private interest. Cult activities are marked by secrecy and concealment. Firstly, through religious disguise. Many operate under the shelter of orthodox religion, committing crimes in the name of faith, yet ultimately serving selfish purposes. Second is secretive communications. Cult employs nicknames, one-way messaging, and isolated information flows. Members are cut off from outside sources of truth. And third is isolation in place. Gatherings often occur in private or remote locations, creating the perfect environment for indoctrination away from scrutiny. And lastly, violence and intimidation that ensures loyalty. Members are forced into submissions until fear transforms into allegiance, and victims themselves become complicit. To understand how cults control minds, psychologist Stephen Hassan introduced the BITE model, or the BITE model. It breaks down their techniques into 4 domains. B for behavior control, which is the daily life that's strictly regulated, such as ceremonies, rituals, and codes that often conduct strict members of individuality. I is for information control. In that sense, access to outside knowledge is blocked. Only the group's narrative is allowed to circulate. T is thought control. Through indoctrination, repetitive teachings, and sometimes hypnosis, members' very ways of thinking are reshaped. And E is for emotion control. Fear, guilt, and shame are harnessed to bind individuals closer to the group, making them feel dependent and unworthy outside of it. This framework can be clearly understood through the lens of social learning theory. According to Albert Bandura, individuals learn behavior through observations, imitations, and most importantly through systems of reward and punishments. Cults operate in exactly this way. They reward compliance with acceptance, status, and sometimes privilege. They punish dissent with exclusion, shame, or even violence. Over time, this conditioning ensures that members internalize cult norms and values. What begins as external enforcement becomes self-regulations as individuals learn to think, act, and feel according to the cult's expectations. Now, to explain why cult crimes occur, we will turn to strain theory, developed by Robert Merton and expanded by Robert Agnew. Strain theory argues that when individuals are blocked from achieving goals such as success, belonging, or stability, they experience frustration and negative emotions. Some turn to deviant paths as a way to cope. In the case of cults, leaders such as Jim Jones and Charles Manson experienced personal failures and rejection by society. Instead of integrating, they created insular worlds where they would wield control. For the followers, they often face alienation or social isolations. They join cult as an escape from their own frustrations. And this criminal behavior, whether fraud, abuse, or violence, became the mechanism by which cults maintained cohesion and fulfilled the leader's ambitions. The tragedy of Jones Stone, where the collective strain of Jones and his followers led to mass death, or the Manson family, where hardship and rejection translated into manipulations, violence, and murder. Now, the final dimension can be explained through social control theory. The theory suggests that individuals refrain from deviance because of strong bonds to society, attachment to family, commitments to school or work, and involvement in community. These bonds act as restraints against harmful behavior. When individuals are excluded from their families, those bonds begin to dissolve. Without attachment to family or commitment to mainstream society, the individuals become far more susceptible to alternative system of control. Cults exploit this vulnerability. They present themselves as a surrogate family, offering acceptance, belongings, and purpose. And this is what Rick Alan Ross also stated in one of the videos on YouTube. As he said, one of the characteristics of being a cult member is that you feel isolated from the family. So the emotional ties once provided by family are redirected towards the cult. Thus, the normal bonds that might prevent deviance are not only weakened, they are replaced entirely. The cult becomes the new primary anchor, and loyalty to the group overrides loyalty to society. So, cults are not merely eccentric communities. They're structured, manipulative, and often a dangerous organization. This is Crimsify. Goodbye.